artists, this is Jane Hill and we're back in the studio to make a fabulous new art project. Now, this art project I have affectionately called Shoe Bugs. Shoe Bugs? What's that? Well, it's an art project where we use texture rubbing, shape, and the material of collage to create a fabulous insect or bug, all made from a texture rubbing of our shoe. Now you can see mine here. The screen is not large enough to show the whole thing, but I'll pass them in front of you. And if you look carefully, you'll see that I've used the shape of my large shoe and the texture rubbing from it to create my work of art. So we're going to think about a lot of things here. We're going to think about the art element of texture. We're going to think about the art element of shape. And we're going to be inspired by that great collage master, Henri Matisse. Let's start by taking a look at one of his pieces right now. Now, Matisse was a French artist, folks, and he worked in the 1900s and made beautiful paintings throughout his life. But as an old man, he became kind of ill and tired, and it was hard for his hands to handle his paintbrushes and his colors. So he decided to experiment with a new art form, collage, where paper is cut out and glued onto a surface. He painted very, very beautiful bright sheets of paper, which was easy to do. And then he took those colored papers and he cut them out. He made a whole series of collages called Jazz. And the print I'm about to show you now, or the collage rather, is from that series. Take a look at it. What do you see here? It's a circus scene. And when I look at this collage, I see a lot of things that make Matisse's art so beautiful and famous. First of all, he uses rich, bold color. His colors were so bold when he was young, he was called the Fauve, the wild beast. Secondly, Matisse knows about two important types of shape: organic shapes, which curve gently around and are very flowing, and geometric shapes, which are very crisp and hard-edged, like you see here in these background papers, or even on the edge of the carriage right here. So he combined different types of shapes and wove them together to make something beautiful. Do you see what's inside the carriage? I see a little organic shape, and I notice it's very small, and that there's other small shapes around the picture. But when I look with my artist eyes, I also see that Matisse used sort of medium-sized shapes and then really big shapes all together. So he didn't just use one shape, he used several. Finally, I noticed that Matisse uses great color contrasts. The colors are very strongly different. And I noticed that he must have overlapped. In other words, he must have laid down a sheet of paper and put another piece on top to create his collage. So he gives us an awful lot to think about, artists, when we create our wonderful collage. But how are we going to get started? Let's talk about the materials that you need. First of all, you're going to need to get a shoe of some sort. You can take the one off of your foot or get one that you're not wearing, but you'll need your shoe. And you're also going to need other objects to make texture rubbings with. You might need, for example, a leaf. Let's see if I have one here. A leaf. Or you might need a dry leaf. You might look around the house and find bricks or surfaces of walls. There's zillions of things you can make texture rubbings from. You're going to need to make sure that you've got a pack of crayons, like this pack I have right here. And remember, when we do our texture rubbings, it's okay to peel the paper off the crayons. You're going to need to have a pair of scissors, like this. You're going to need to have lots of paper, plain white paper, or you might want to use construction paper. And finally, folks, you're going to need to have a glue stick, or you can also use Elmer's glue. Alrighty, let's get started. I'm going to take my crown, and I'm going to take just one single sheet of paper. Oh, it's very exciting. And I'm going to take my shoe. Now I'm going to hold my paper flat up against my shoe like this. Using my crown, and notice that I peeled it, no paper on it. Using my crown, I'm going to lay it flat against my shoe, and I'm going to rub super hard. Rub, 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 rub. Rub, 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 rub. Whoa, this is so cool. I can't stand it. Look at this. After rubbing really hard, I get the texture of the object I'm rubbing. In this case, my shoe. Kind of looks like a peanut, but it's an interesting shape. Now, different shoes are going to wield different textures. It just depends on what you're actually using. That's the exciting thing. So when you do this, you're going to have to go around and you're going to have to collect a whole bunch of textures. Let's try a texture rubbing of a leaf and see what we get. Let's see. Where did my leaf go? Here it is. I'm going to hold this up for you to see. Alrighty, here's the texture rubbing of the fern. You know, sometimes you might have to practice a little to get your texture rubbing. Play with it, experiment with how hard you press and how light you press. But whoa, that's really cool. That's the texture rubbing of one of my leaves. So collect a whole bunch of them. I got a whole bunch that I used, and it's really exciting to see what they look like. This is a texture rubbing that I got of my drain spout outside, the rain spout. This is a texture rubbing, a whole page of leaves that I did from the backyard. So experiment and find some things that work great for you. Okay, after you've gotten your texture rubbing, you're going to want to go ahead and get out, lay them all out, not with the textured thing underneath, just on a flat surface. And now you're going to get your crowns. And what I want you to do is to remember Matisse's big bold colors, and I want you to layer some colors on top of there. So I started with the blue texture rubbing right here. And what did I do? I put in some pink, I put on some yellow, I put on some oranges. Really apply that color nice and firm. So let's see, I'm gonna take, how about some light blue and put it on this texture rubbing that I just made. Just go ahead and really apply your color. You know what? You're gonna have wonderful muscles by the time you're done with this. Who knew that actually making art would help you get a whole bunch of exercise? But it will. Press the crowns really firmly. And you know what, folks? You don't have to use just one. You can use more than one. When you layer your colors like this, one color or more than one color, you get a really rich, beautiful surface to work with. Okay, get a whole bunch of texture rubbings together. And now I'm gonna start with my shoe rubbing and I'm gonna cut it out. So I get my scissors and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna cut all around my shoe shape. This is going to be the starting shape for the body of the insect that I make. This is so exciting. Now, I have to be an adventurer with art, and I have to allow myself to see and create. When I look at my shoe, I might just think, well, it's just a shoe, but you have to now think, what else could it be? Could this be the abdomen of my bug, and this the little chest, or the thorax? Could I add a head? Could this be the head? Maybe there'd be big eyes here and a smile. You have to think about the parts of your insect and also what kind of bug you want to make. When you're making your shape, you might want to take a little bit off or trim it or cut it in half. That's totally okay. That's up to you. You're the artist. You're the creator. So think about what you can do to really make the image interesting. Once you've got that started, you've got an idea, you're starting to cut your shapes out. Then take your sheet of paper that you're going to use as the background for your insect. And when I do this, I like to use a different colored paper, such as one that's black, but you can use really any paper that you have. You can even use a sheet of newspaper. That might be a really awesome surface as the background for your collage. Okie dokie, you've got your background shape, you've got pieces that you cut out, and now you're going to start laying them down on your black paper. So this is one I made earlier, and I'm going to start thinking about how do I want it to go. I don't want to just plunk it down the first place and glue it in place. No, I want to look at my whole composition. I want to play with angle. I might even want to consider, should my composition be vertical, up and down, or should it be horizontal, sideways? But where on my picture plane do I want to place my insect? Don't glue it down until you're really happy with that spot. Once you've got that figured out, you're going to start cutting out your other pieces of paper. You might make wings. Here's a wing that I made out of another piece of paper. Don't have your collage going off your picture plane. It'll tend to rip. You want to keep it all on your paper. But remember, you can stack and overlap. You can put an object on top of another object in your picture plane if you like that. Like I'm laying this one right here. And don't forget to think about your background. That's all of the area around here. When you are finally pleased with where everything is, then it's time to start gluing on your collage. So for this, I'm going to get my glue stick. Here it is, my glue stick. I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to apply my glue to the back all over. Here's my sneaker. So I'm going to apply my glue all over. I'm not going to put it just in one spot. I want to be very thorough and put it all over my sneaker. Taking my time, because if I don't, sure enough, it's going to peel off. And I don't want to put it in place until I'm super sure of where I want it to go. Because once you have it on there, it's a little tricky to move it. When I have it all covered in glue, I lift it up, I flip it over, I place it very carefully, and then I rub. And then, folks, I keep adding all the other parts of my collage. Now, for heaven's sakes, don't just put down 1 or 2 shapes. I want you to be good creative artists and think of all of the parts of an insect that exist. We have the body, we have the head, we have wiggly insect legs, we might have antenna, we might have ears, eyes, mouth, nose, stripes, patterns, and designs. Think of a butterfly. You also need to think about mood. Is your insect basically friendly? Or maybe it's kind of a spooky insect that might be a little mean? Does your insect live in a flower? Does it live in outer space? What if you don't want to do an insect? Well, why don't you try a circus like Matisse did? There's a zillion ideas out there. But all in all, I want you to think of several things. I want you to think about using organic shapes that are curvy, like this one is, geometric shapes that are hard-edged and even-steven, like this square is. I want you to think about objects that are big, medium-sized, and little. Don't make them so little you can't glue them down. And I want you to think about stacking and overlapping, putting one shape down and another on top. That can be really exciting. Don't forget to use rich, bold color, and then fill your entire picture plane like I did here. When you are done, folks, you are going to have the most fabulous collage that anyone has ever seen. You can hang it proudly on your wall and then go help your friend make one. Well, thanks so much for joining me on this video where we learned about collage and Matisse, and go have fun making art. I'll see you on the next video.